everyone, Karen the Warp Spinster here. Welcome to my channel where we cut and sew and see what happens. I am very happy to have you join me today. Thank you for all of your support. I'm very grateful for your views and your comments and just for hanging out with me. As you can see, we are back in George's Park. I think this is the third video in this series. If I remember, I will link the first two in the description below. I think I created a playlist for this. If I haven't, I will do it. And I want to talk a bit about how I'm going to start putting this together. I often get comments asking, how did you put this together? What did it look like when you were finished? And just a reminder, I don't always put things together. I'm mostly just experimenting and playing with design and techniques here. So sometimes I don't do anything with it except learn from it. This one I do want to put together, however, so I thought I would show you. When I don't show you how I put it together, it's because I don't know. I think it would be kind of boring, but people are asking about it. So here it is. And, you can fast forward through it if it doesn't interest you. The thing, and sometimes I just need to contemplate it and cogitate for a while to figure out how I want to do it. This would normally not be a problem. I've got all these bits and pieces that I would arrange and put together, and I will make more of them. This isn't probably as large as I want it. But this portion, what I was thinking about was that I want to have some of these pieces that kind of go around these larger sections. And I wanted to stop and think about how I could best do that. And I think, these will go together pretty easily. I'll just do a strip that size, kind of 45-degree angle here, make that a strip and add it onto this strip. And I'll probably make it pretty long in case I want this piece to be longer. This might end up a little further down so that I have more real estate in this direction. I've turned this, it actually is a vertical orientation. In real life, I want it to be vertical, but I wanted to fit it on the screen. So that is pretty easy. That won't be a problem. And since this is straight over here, it's going to be easy to integrate these in close to this side of it. Over here, however, we've got some interruptions in straight lines. So this will be easy. Again, these two pieces, I will just cut these angles and add white on them. The white is going to be the background. This is just foam core to give me the visual view. If I put it on my my black desk, my black table, or the green cutting mat, then I won't be able to get the real visual weight and proportion of weight in it because the background color will be wrong. So anyway, so the angles are I'll demonstrate this one. These are just, I think they're both, this one definitely is a 45-degree. This one is probably more acute. And I'll show you how I'm going to deal with those unusual angles. So here, what I think I'm going to do is make a section like this, probably smaller in this case. And then there would probably be another one, down here, so that I fill out this area and then fill it enough with the white around it that I can cut this angle from it without cutting these. I want these to remain whole. I don't want to slice into any of them. So I will make this strip here. So there will be an angle cut. I'll have a strip of fabric here, but this is going to be part of that strip. So this will have white around it. I will do fillers all the way around this so I have white around it. And then which will fit into this strip going this way. Then I will just add on a white strip with a proper width there. Sorry, I got my elbow in the way there. And then that will finish that out and give me pieces sort of integrated into that angle. Then here I'll do the same thing, although it's going to be a narrower bit, and it may just be, say, 1 or 2 pieces that are going to go in there. So for example, this one I could integrate in, although I'd probably put another narrow white strip in here, so this one isn't butting right up against this color here. And then I can just add a strip on here and then make this match this angle here. So that is the plan. And then the same thing here. So I'll add this strip on here. I'll have to put some pieces here. I don't think I want them to go further than here. So for example, I don't want it to be like this. I don't think. No, I'm pretty sure I don't. So these pieces are not going to extend beyond this at this point. Now I might have more pieces out here, and it's a wide section of bits and bobs coming in, narrowing out, and then maybe going wider at that side, or narrow coming in, wide going narrow. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure I don't want any of these pieces up here. But I do want them down there. Isn't that interesting? Maybe I do want some up here, so that it could come in as, I was thinking about doing narrow to wide. This would be wide and then go back to narrow, but I'm remembering that I want this to be asymmetrical. I don't want this cutting right down the middle of the piece. I want this to be about 1/3 of it, and this about 2/3. So if I start narrow, come in here wider, and then it just gets wider there. That's probably what I'll do. All right, so, or I could do wider, becoming narrower, and then less over here. No, that's going to put a lot of visual weight over on this side, except that this is going to be only 1/3. This is going to be 2/3, so I can have it narrow and then about the same width for quite a ways, and then get a little wider and out. These are the things that trouble my mind at 2 in the morning. All right. So first thing I'm going to do, though, is start working. Now let's do this one, because this one will be easier to understand, I think, what I'm doing. We'll at least get this end of it finished with just, say, do we have anything? This is the only one that's just 2 pieces. So I'll add another strip. I could do this, because there will be a white bit here. So I'm trying not to have this go right up against another piece or another color. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit here. Oops, sorry. And so this I can just actually add on. Then I'm going to add a white strip over here. Okay, so let's do that first. I'm going to just add a white strip of this width. Now this does taper, so it's going to go that direction, which means that's going to be cut off at an angle, and I do not want that. So, new plan. So I'm going to put a strip of white here because I want a buffer or a filler between this and this green. And then I'm going to add a strip of white, probably about this width and fairly long, because if I want this to be a longer at the bottom piece, then I will want plenty of white to match up with this green strip. So that's the first step. So I'm going to add a narrow white buffer here, filler here, then add another white strip on here, and then we'll come back and add those pieces onto this blue. And I'm going to have to move this out of the way before I knock anything more off the side of my desk, and so that I have some room to cut and trim. But I think you've got the general idea of the overall layout here. I've added a narrow strip here. I've added on a long white strip here. When I'm adding it to here, I want to make sure that I have enough seam allowance that I'm going to still have some white here and still some white here. Now this is going to angle this direction soon when I cut it to this angle, but this will still leave this hole. So I don't want to be cutting across it that way. And even with the seam, there's not going to be much there. I could end up using a narrower seam just to make sure that I don't lose all of this white, and I don't want to lose all of this white. So I think that's about the correct placement, actually, so that I can now stitch this on and then cut that white strip according to the angle when I get this sewed on. So I have this sewed on, and if I go to cut this angle, I barely have enough here to not cut it off. I think I am going to end up with probably a narrower seam there, but, or I can always change the angle of the blue, honestly, because that's not exactly set in stone. I might do that just slightly so that there's still an angle, but not quite as sharp an angle. I mean, that was just a random angle I put on that to begin with, so that isn't a big deal. And when I say narrower seam, I don't mean that all of a sudden it's going to be a 1/16 of an inch. I'm still going to have enough. Got to have enough room there. All right. So that's going to be quite narrow there, but I think it's going to be all right. Let me make sure that's out straight. And now I can cut this angle. And as I go further down, so you can see here, that's just a little bit over 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to have to watch that when I stitch it. As I continue this angle going down, it will eventually come to the vanishing point, as we would call it if we were drawing in perspective. That's all right, because this is going to be more white. So we're going to have some interesting angles in the white fabric going forward. All right, let me zoom out a little bit. No, I was that close in before. All right, so now I'm going to make sure I get that trimmed off. And now we have that strip that is ready to go on the green strip. No, it's not, because I still have to do the top. All right, let's talk about the angles and how I'm going to do them. If they were 45-degree angles, it'd be a piece of cake. Easy peasy, but they are not. So I'm going to get a strip of white. Now that we have this end of it put together, we're going to piece the other end of the blue. And we'll just use this to talk about how I'm going to do the angles that are not usual angles for us, like 45 or 60. I have no idea what this angle is. Pretty sure it's not 45, but I'm sure it's not actually. All I'm going to do is lay this blue strip, the end, on top of the white strip that I'm going to be adding, and just cut that angle. So now I could just add that on, flipping it right sides together, of course. All right, so I want this to be wide enough that I can widen this out at least for a distance. At some point it's going to hit the edge. I could use a much wider strip and have it continue out. Like this one is narrowing down at this end. This one is going to get wider at this end. And depending on how long I'm going to make this top part of the quilt, this could end up being pretty wide by the time I get further out, but it doesn't have to. I've just left some room for it to widen out. At some point it's going to hit that, and I'll just do my strips that I add on here to make it straight there. I'll show you when we get to that point, but which may not be today. So now I can just flip this right sides together, leave myself a little dog ear here, probably a little extra in case that isn't quite straight, and then just stitch that. So this is going to end up, when I put it back, there's going to be some leeway down here, and I'm okay with that. If I wanted it to match up exactly, I would do my little dog ear more like that with this angle. So that's just 1/4 of an inch, but I want a little bit of leeway there just because I'm me and it's probably not perfectly straight. And this is improv, so what the heck. All right, I'm going to stitch that, and then we'll trim that a bit, and we'll be ready to tackle that orange angle. Orange, that's green, Karen. That green angle, right? I have plenty of strip left here to make it as tall as I want. And when I'm doing the composition for this, I've already mentioned the 1/3, 2/3 breakdown that I'm going to do. And then in terms of the vertical composition, I want more white negative space at the top and less at the bottom, because I want it to have more weight at the bottom, so it's looks sort of gravitationally correct. It's just the right thing for the eye to want a little weight at the bottom. So I am going to, well, no, I'm not going to. When I am ready to trim this, I will be following this angle, but I'm going to leave it this way until I get the next pieces finished so that I know just exactly how I want to cut that, how long, etc., etc. So there's our blue strip. Now we want to tackle the greens. To be drawing on some of the pieces that I already have, and then maybe add some on. So I'll need to again put a buffer strip up here. I'm just not paying attention to my screen here today, so I'm not talking off screen. This, I'll need a buffer piece up here and one down here, and then I'm also going to want to put another bitter bob here so that it angles up but doesn't cut off anything that's already there. So I'll probably do a buffer strip here because I don't want this, I want this to be against white, and then do another bit there, a bit or a bob, and there'll be another strip here. When this comes this direction, I wonder if I could do just a really small one like this down here, so that I don't end up with a blob of white here, blob of white here, and then bits and bobs over here. I want it to kind of flow around this. It's not going to be a problem up here, but at this angle, I'm probably going to want just a little tiny narrow piece down here, which I will have to construct. And let me grab a little little bit. You can barely see this because you've got that print there. I've got plenty of bits and bobs left. So let me think. I think I want something that's a little more bluish. So maybe something like this. This is going to angle out here. So maybe one here and a little one there. Trying to keep in mind, these are going to be smaller because they're already small and I'm going to be putting white around it. So this will probably be here. I try not to have things lined up, and these I think are necessarily going to be lined up, but I'll live with it here. It's going to happen once in a while. And then over here, that's too close to that other one in coloring. So I could do one here. Again, I don't want to line this up with that if I can help it. This I will probably need to cut down a little unless I can find one that's already. Okay. So now as this happens, because this is going to angle out here, in fact that could actually probably be a bit bigger, couldn't it? Do I have something? Okay, so that will have, I might have to trim that down a little bit, but I think that will work overall. I do have this purple piece. I'm sorry, you guys can fast forward this if you don't care about all this yammer. Some of you like it, and I think some of you just listen to me at double speed. All right, so I may have to trim this down a bit, but I think it will work so that when I do this, everything's going to flow. And I will have to do sort of roughly the same thing on this side so that I've got some larger ones here. And then as I get further down, they're going to be smaller pieces to allow for that angle. So, and I will continue to do filler. You can see that I am adding in little bits of filler here so that these are not lining up with each other. I prefer to have everything random, I guess. It's not really random, but this one I put in a filler piece here because I didn't want this edge to line up with that one. That would be too regular for the look that I want. All right, so I'm going to have to build some more here, and then I will come back and show you what I have planned. There may be some more down here as well, but for the moment I want to concentrate on getting this angle part finished first. And then I think that kind of covers how I'm going to put everything together, basically. These pieces, again, the bits and bobs, I'm going to have to do a lot more of these. Again, I've just bordered everything in white and have done fillers and arranged them so I don't have edges lined up. There's an edge lined up here. Oops. But one every now and then isn't going to matter. It's just I don't want a lot of them lined up that way. All right, let me work on this. So these, all I'm doing is adding some white around it. And so we can flow around this angle. All right, this is what I've been building so far. I'll do some serious pressing later on. So now I'm ready to build something in here. When I do this angle, I can go straight across here, and so that I don't have to continue out like this. So that's what I will end up doing. I think I'm probably going to trim a little bit up here so that once all the seams are together, I want to make sure that I'm not cutting off any of these pieces. So I might trim up there a little bit. And now I need to build this piece, which I might do as a triangle to begin with. Here's what I'll do. I am going to trim this to sort of the amount of seam allowance that I want to have here. So when I cut straight across this way, I want to make sure that I have at least enough seam allowance for that. So that's 1/2 inch, which would give me a 1/4 inch seam allowance when that is, or 1/4 inch showing. I'll do a little less than that. And then I can trim a little from up here. There's a lot of finagling that goes on with this. I am not going to lie. Okay. So that piece will go up there. I can always do it this way too. That would almost be better, wouldn't it? All right, cool. Better still. Now, and this can be cut off a little bit if I'm going to add a white strip down here. I've got seams to go here yet, so that is not straight. Will bother me if I don't fix that right now. Okay, I'm getting a little chintzy on that seam. I'm making it worse, aren't I? All right. I will finish trimming. I wonder what I'm using different. It's probably never going to be straight in relation to one seam or another. There we are. Got a very chintzy seam there. If I end up losing it, it'll be all right because I have white bordering around it. So there's that bit. And I don't know, but what I don't want to add something in there somewhere. Because if this is going to be this wide, then that's going to be quite a jump to get to there. So lots of finagling, as I said. All right, I'm going to start building around this. I might end up actually with another piece down here, another small piece, but I'll play with that and come back and maybe get these attached to here and then call it a day. And here is what I have pieced together. Could be a little tiny one here or here, but at some point I just have to stop. There will be more out here. Things will blend in. I'll have a little bit down there as well. So I am ready to cut this to the angle. Everything will be straighter once I finish this. The seams are very distracting, but once the quilting is finished, then those are going to be less distracting. I don't want these to line up, so I'm probably going to shift this a little bit this way. It doesn't really matter. I'm not lining it up or stitching it to that yet. So now I am ready to cut this angle. You can see there's lots of ragged edges here, and this is going to be where it's almost touching that, but that's all right. We can handle that. So I'm going to cut this angle and then put right sides together here and stitch that. So this is going to be 1/4 inch from this edge here. So when I'm stitching, the needle will meet right at that intersection. So we have this angle sewn. We managed to avoid cutting off any of these pieces. Now I want to trim this even with that point, because from here on out, that strip is going to be straight. I've still got enough seam allowance up here, and I don't mind if that's cut off a bit. So, and this is ready to go on here at some point. I will need to do an angle of white here so that this becomes, well, let me put this under here. It's been a week, can you tell? So I will need to do an angled piece here to make this straight so that I can sew the seam here. But this will probably have a little bit of the bits and bobs in here as well. Then when I get to this point, it's a piece of cake. It's just putting bits and bobs together. So that's about it for today. I hope that gives you some idea of how I go about piecing these things. It's, you know, it's not always a pretty thing. And also going down here, of course, it will be more bits and bobs and then white. So I think they'll probably, this is going to, what did I decide, narrow going out. So I'll probably have larger pieces here, a couple smaller pieces here, so that it's going to widen as it goes to the other side. Okay, so I need to do some pressing here, obviously, and that's it for this week. Next week, if I haven't been able to have a chance to stitch more on this, we will come back and do more. I think I will try to probably at least do something here. Probably don't need much down here, but maybe just a couple of small pieces in here. And then I'll add more on when we add the white strip down here. So I hope to see you next week. In the meantime, be well, be safe, especially if you are in Southern California. Please be safe, be happy, be quilting. Peace out.